Assalamu alaikum. This is Kimia Orin welcoming you to afternoon news on BTV and BTV World. Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina has reached Qatar's capital Doha to attend 5th United Nations Conference on Least Developed Countries LDC5 from Potential to Prosperity. Earlier, a special VVIP flight of Biman Bangladesh Airlines carrying the Premier and her entourage members departed from the Hazrat Shah Jalal International Airport at around 11:15 a.m. Sheikh Hasina, during her visit, will lead a high-level delegation and hold bilateral meeting with her Qatari counterpart, apart from her participation in the LDC5 conference. During her stay in Qatar till March 8, she is scheduled to have a meeting with the Emir of Qatar. Bilateral issues, including cooperation in the areas of energy sector, will come up for discussion. Immediately after her arrival in Doha, Sheikh Hasina is scheduled to have separate meetings with UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres, United Nations General Assembly President Sisaba Korosi, and United Nations Development Program Administrator Hashim Steiner at Qatar National Convention Center. Tomorrow, the Prime Minister is scheduled to deliver a speech at the opening plenary meeting of the LDC5 conference as a special guest at the QNCC. She is also scheduled to attend LDC5 high-level luncheon on investment and partnership at QNCC. The Prime Minister is as well scheduled to deliver a speech at a side event titled Sustainable and Smooth Transition for the Graduating Cohort of 2021 to be arranged jointly by Bangladesh, Laos and Nepal. She is scheduled to leave Doha for Dhaka in the morning on March 8th. Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina had a breakfast meeting with Executive Chairman of the Tony Blair Institute for Global Change and former British Prime Minister Tony Blair at Ganobhavani, Dhaka today. During the meeting, the former British Prime Minister apprised the Bangladesh Premier of his institute's activities. Prime Minister's Press Secretary Ehsanul Karim briefed the newsmen after the meeting. Sheikh Hasina and Tony Blair both reviewed Bangladesh-UK relations. Press Secretary Karim said the Prime Minister apprised the Tony Blair Institute's mission to enable leaders and governments for a global future. Sheikh Hasina recalled her meetings with Tony Blair while he was British Prime Minister. They also talked about sports, particularly cricket, as England cricket team is touring Bangladesh right now. Prime Minister's Principal Secretary Mohammad Tafazil Hossain Mian, Senior Secretary of Foreign Affairs Masood bin Momen, Secretary to the Prime Minister's Office Mohammad Salahuddin, and British High Commissioner to Bangladesh Robert Chatterton Dixon were present. Meanwhile, former British Prime Minister Tony Blair paid a courtesy call on Speaker Dr. Shirin Sharmin Chaudhry at the Jatiyo সংসদ Bhavan office in Dhaka this morning. Tony Blair is the founder and executive chairman of Tony Blair Institute for Global Change. Speaker Dr. Shirin Sharmin Chaudhry said Bangladesh achieved 100% electrification under the leadership of Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina. She said the government has been working to turn Bangladesh into a developed nation by 2041 by ensuring women's economic and political empowerment as well as social safety. The speaker sought more cooperation from the UK to expedite Bangladesh's development spree. Former British Prime Minister Tony Blair said Bangladesh is a genuine friend of the UK. He praised Bangladesh's graduation into a developing nation. Tony Blair also praised materializing the dream of Podda Bridge project into a reality. Agriculture Minister Dr. Abdul Razak said BNP would join the next parliamentary elections to sustain its existence. He said this today while addressing the reception of fresh students and cultural function at Government Kumudini College in Tangail. Tangail Jila Parishad Chairman Fazlur Rahman Khan Farooq, lawmaker Zohirul Islam, Sanwar Hussain and Khondokar Momota Hina Lafli among others spoke at the program. The Agriculture Minister said the government is transforming the country's education system as smart and today's students would take forward Smart Bangladesh. Bangladesh's largest BSCIC industrial park is being constructed on the bank of Jamuna in Sirajganj. This park will accommodate 570 small and big industries, creating employments for several 100,000 people. In the meantime, this project has made significant work progress, including earth filling and construction of boundary walls, as well as administrative buildings on 400 acres of land on the western side of Bangabandhu Bridge. Project Director of BACIC Industrial Park in Sirajganj, Zafar Bayezid, says the project will come to an end by June 2023. Insiders say this industrial park will usher in a new era in agriculture-based Sirajganj. Now international news. At least 17 people have died in a huge fire at a state-run fuel depot in the Indonesian capital, Jakarta. 60 people were injured, with many people severely burned. Hundreds living in residential areas near the fire had to be evacuated. Indonesian officials are calling for an audit of all fuel facilities and infrastructures. The U.S. is to give $400 million more in military aid to Ukraine to boost Kyiv's ammunition stocks depleted during its ongoing high-intensity war with Russia. Secretary of State Antony Blinken said this included high-precision HIMARS artillery rockets and howitzers, which Ukraine is using so effectively. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky earlier stressed that artillery and shells were needed to stop Russia. The U.S. is also sending tactical bridges ahead of Ukraine's expected offensive. Meanwhile, Moscow on Friday maintained its months-long assault on Bakhmut, with Russian mercenaries claiming that they have practically encircled the city in the eastern Donetsk region. A court in Belarus has sentenced Nobel Peace Prize winner Ales Bialiatski to 10 years in prison. He was convicted of smuggling and financing actions grossly violating public order. Supporters of Mr. Bialiatski say the authoritarian regime of Belarusian leader Alexander Lukashenko is trying to silence him. Bialiatski was one of the 3 winners of the 2022 Nobel Peace Prize. He was arrested in 2021 following massive street protests over widely disputed elections the previous year and accused of smuggling cash into Belarus to fund opposition activity. U.S. President Joe Biden had a skin lesion removed from his chest in February that was a basal cell carcinoma, a common form of skin cancer, and no further treatment is needed, White House physician Kevin O'Connor said on Friday. All cancerous tissue was successfully removed, the White House physician said in a letter, adding that Biden will continue dermatologic surveillance as part of his ongoing health care, but the site had healed. Last month, doctors declared Biden 80 healthy and fit for duty after physical examination. They said at the time that a small lesion had been removed from his chest and sent for a biopsy. That's all from the newsroom for the moment. Thank you for staying with us. Khuda Hafiz.